Can machines think? I mean, it's a massive, profound question, isn't it? Back in 1950, a brilliantly quirky mathematician named Alan Turing actually set out to answer it. But to pull it off, he realized he had to completely flip the whole question on its head, really just to avoid this massive philosophical trap.
See, Turing figured out pretty fast that debating the literal, dictionary definitions of words like machine and think was a really dangerous trap. He argued that if we just looked at how everyday people use these words, we'd basically have to find the answer through a statistical survey, like a Gallup poll. And he boldly called that out as completely absurd. I mean, you can't just crowdsource the truth of intelligence, right? So he decided to scrap that vague question entirely and replace it with a concrete, totally testable scenario.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the literal founding text of artificial intelligence, Alan Turing's 1950 paper. We're going to break down this incredible paradigm shift together, and by the end of our time here, you're going to understand the bedrock of modern AI in a really beautiful, structured way. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, redefining the question. Second, the universal machine. Third, tackling objections. And finally, the child machine.
Part 1. Redefining the question, and what Turing famously called the imitation game. This is exactly where he introduces that first major paradigm shift, completely replacing endless philosophical debate with a practical, real-world test.
The mechanics of this game actually break down elegantly into 3 distinct roles. You've got player A, which is the machine, and its whole objective is to deceive. Then there's player B, a human, whose job is just to help the interrogator. And finally, player C, the interrogator, who is sitting in a totally separate room trying to figure out who is the human and who is the machine. Now notice the absolutely crucial rule here. All answers must be typewritten via a teleprinter. Turing did this intentionally. It hides physical traits like voice or appearance, completely isolating pure intellect. It's basically a 1950s text message.
And this brilliant little setup reveals Turing's incredibly clever vision of machine intelligence. Imagine the interrogator asks a really complex math question. Well, if a machine were simply acting like a standard calculator, it would answer instantly and perfectly, which would immediately give itself away, right? Instead, Turing's strategy is for the machine to actually pause, maybe for 30 seconds, and then output a deliberate mathematical error, like 105621. It actually pretends to be a slow, fallible human just to trick the interrogator. It is a total psychological game of deception.
All right, Part 2. The universal machine. Grounding philosophy in hardware. This is where Turing takes his philosophical game and grounds it in the hard reality of technology.
So to actually play this game, Turing restricted the machine to what he called a digital computer. But what did that actually mean to a guy in 1950? Well, he broke it down into 3 very clean steps. First, the store. This holds information in memory, kind of like blank paper. Second, the executive unit, which is the part that actually carries out the individual calculations. And third, the control, which makes sure a specific table of instructions is obeyed in the exact right order. Turing actually compared this whole setup to a human computer who is handed a strict book of rules and just follows them to the letter without ever deviating.
Now, what's shockingly prophetic here is how Turing viewed the future of these devices. He boldly predicted that in exactly 50 years, so the year 2000, computers with a storage capacity of 10 to the power of 9, which is about a gigabyte, by the way, could fool an average interrogator 30% of the time after just 5 minutes of questioning. He literally set a highly specific timeline and a mathematical threshold for machine intelligence decades before modern computing even truly existed. Mind-blowing stuff.
Moving on to Part 3, tackling the objections, the great debate. Cue the boxing match portion of This Explainer, because this is where Turing systematically, and honestly pretty playfully, dismantles the critics of his era.
We kick things off with Lady Lovelace's famous objection way back from 1842 regarding early computing engines. She stated, "The analytical engine has no pretensions to originate anything. It can do whatever we know how to order it to perform." So basically, critics argued that machines can never truly create anything new. They can never take us by surprise.
Well, Turing's rebuttal to this is blunt, direct, and genuinely hilarious. He simply states, "Machines take me by surprise with great frequency." He explains that this happens largely because he does his own calculations in a hurried, slipshod fashion. He takes risks. So sure, the machine does exactly what it's told, but our own human assumptions and programming errors lead to totally unexpected results. The surprise actually comes from the human-machine interaction itself.
Next up in the ring is the argument from consciousness, which was introduced by Professor Jefferson in 1949. He claimed that we couldn't agree a machine equals a brain until it could write a sonnet or compose a concerto because of thoughts and emotions felt, not just by a chance fall of symbols. Essentially, his argument is that the machine has to actually feel the emotion, not just artificially signal it.
But Turing counters this so elegantly with a hypothetical viva voce, basically an oral exam. The interrogator asks if a winter's day would scan better than a summer's day in a specific poem. The machine replies that, well, nobody wants to be compared to a winter's day unless it's a special one like Christmas. Boom! This perfectly demonstrates how a machine could exhibit deep contextual and even cultural understanding of poetry to win the imitation game without needing a literal beating soul to do it.
And then we get to the arguments from various disabilities. This is essentially a rapid-fire list of claims based on heavily flawed scientific induction about what machines will quote-unquote never do. People seriously claim they will never be kind, resourceful, friendly, have a sense of humor, fall in love, or, and this is absolutely my personal favorite, enjoy strawberries and cream. Turing adopts this slightly incredulous tone here, which is great. I mean, the idea of trying to program a machine to enjoy a delicious dish of strawberries isn't physically impossible, it's just kind of idiotic. He pointed out these limitations were mostly just due to the tiny storage capacities they had back then, not some fundamental rule of the universe.
Now, what about the claim that machines cannot make mistakes? Well, Turing brilliantly separates mistakes into two totally different categories. First, you have errors of functioning, which are basically impossible hardware glitches in abstract mathematical machines. But then you have errors of conclusion, which are logical mistakes or outputting false propositions. If a machine is drawing conclusions by scientific induction, it can absolutely make logical errors, just like us.
All right, part 4, the child machine, the blueprint for intelligence. This right here is Turing's ultimate revolutionary proposal for how to actually build this universal thinking machine.
Turing argued that trying to write a program that simulates a fully formed, highly educated adult mind is completely backwards. Instead, he outlined a brilliant 3-step blueprint. Step 1, start with the initial state of the mind at birth. Step 2, the education to which it has been subjected. And Step 3, other experience.
To really drive this home, Turing uses this striking notebook analogy. He wrote, presumably the child brain is something like a notebook as one buys it from the stationers. Rather, a little mechanism and lots of blank sheets. He proposed that what we actually need is a simple base program that learns over time through rewards, punishments, and unemotional symbolic logic. You don't program the adult, right? You program the child, and then you educate it.
And to speed up this education process, Turing contrasted a systematic search, which tries every single combination sequentially, with a random element. By injecting random guesses into the learning process, a machine could find satisfactory solutions so much faster. He likened this directly to evolution. The random element acts like a mutation, drastically speeding up the education of the child machine way beyond what a boring systematic search could ever do.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for today. If Alan Turing could see just a short distance ahead back in 1950 and perfectly envision the architecture of the child machine, what blank sheets are we writing on today? And as these digital notebooks rapidly fill up with our world's data, when will the machine finally surprise us by taking over the pen? I want you to take that thought with you. Thank you so much for diving into this journey of understanding with me. Keep focused, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.